Hello and welcome. Yes, I'm late. Okay, and welcome to my True Crime Thursday, but doing it on Friday series, where I'm going to try and talk and discuss serial killers. The one that I'm discussing today, hey Jane, is Edmund Kemper, the co-ed killer from California. Now, just a disclaimer real quick. I am really gonna try and not ramble too much, and I'm being very serious. I'm not trying to be funny or anything. This was a killer. He did commit crimes, and I do tend to, like I said, ramble, and because I do love TV and movies, I tend to quote stuff, and I'll go off on a tangent like I'm doing now. So anytime I go to quote anything, because TV is my passion, I'll just say hashtag like Golden Girls or hashtag Seinfeld kind of underneath my breath, so you'll know what that comes out in. So I don't have to explain to you, oh, George did this. Okay, shut up. Okay, another disclaimer. This is, the crimes that he committed are brutal, and so if you have any little ones that you're still doing it. Yes, I know that, Mallory. I'm doing that right now. It's hot in here. They're brutal, so you may want to tell your little ones to go night-night or something. But anyway, back to the Edmund Kemper. Love you. Oh, hey, Nikki. I realize that's Nikki. So, this guy. I first learned about Edmund Kemper. I don't know if you all have seen Hunter on Netflix. Came out the series. Would y'all shut up? I'm doing great. Yay! I'm nervous. I'm getting hives. Anyway, I don't know why I'm nervous. I've done a lot of lives, and they goof up sometimes, but whatever. I guess because this is pretty factual, and I don't know everything. There's been different interviews, different pieces and articles about him, and they're all different. Some little things, some tidbits will change, but the whole point is I learned about him on the show Mindhunter. Mindhunter on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it's a really good series. Unfortunately, they stopped at season 2, but from what I hear, they're going to start up again. Hopefully we'll see something next year. I know they still haven't finished like the whole BTK killer. Who cares? But so I first became interested because of that show, because the FBI profilers discussed him, went and interviewed him, and he actually has contributed a lot to the profiling, the science behind that. So that's where I came to want to get to, learn a little bit about him. So, Edmund Kemper was a serial killer in the 70s back in California. He was born on December 18th, 1948 in Burbank, California, to E.E. and Clarnell Kemper. Those were his parents. He was a pretty tall guy. I mean, he was 6'9", 300 pounds. And even his parents, from what, reports have said, they were over 6 feet too. So pretty big family. But in those days, the facts about him are that he, in his span of a lifetime, he killed 10 people. And his crimes started when he was a child. He was 14 when he first killed his grandparents. And what amazed me about this was that he actually went to prison, like a psychiatric mental institution for the criminally insane. And he was let out at the age of 21, which is, crazy in itself. But if we go back through his crimes, like through his childhood, and I know there's always people that say, oh, it's because of their child. Is it nature or nurture? Is it because of what their environment was? Who we don't really know. Me personally, I feel like some of it is environmental, just how they grew up. But obviously you can have a pretty crap childhood and not become a serial killer. I'm not a serial killer. I have a crap childhood, but it wasn't great. But anyway, who cares? So like I said, he was a serial killer. Okay, his early childhood. Now, apparently his mother was a man-hater. She really demeaned her husband, Kemper. She talked down to him, was verbally abusive, was an alcoholic, and he had two sisters. So it was his older sister, Edmund, and then his younger sister. And of course, she favored the girls, and she treated him horribly. I mean, just demeaned the little boy, you know. And I guess all through this childhood, he would see his mother treating his father bad, treating him, abusive. So eventually his father divorced, and he and his mother and his two sisters moved up to Montana. And I think it was about 8 or 10 years old. But the father has been known to say, this woman was horrible. I would rather go through war again than to be with her. It was 10 times worse in war. So he moved out. He was with his mother up north, and his childhood wasn't much better. Like he was already displaying, disturbing tendencies, traits. Like he would come up with games with his sisters, like gas chamber, electric chair, where he would have them like pretend that he was being electrocuted or gas, and he'd be like, I'm dying, And so that's what he felt was fun. There was some interviews where it said that when he would flick the Barbies off the heads off the Barbies, he got a kick out of that. Later on, we'll discuss how, that's what he did. He like decapitated people. So he was sick. He was already out there. By the age of 13, another thing. His mother, she even knew he was not right, because like around 10 years old, she started making him sleep in the basement, like a little boy in the basement, because he was worried that he would hurt her daughters. So even then she knew something wasn't right, but yet she berated him. She would talk bad, like, oh, you're never going to be anything good, and she was right. But so he finally was fed up. Oh wait, back to this thing. At the age of 13, he killed his 2 family cats. One of them, he even like buried it alive, and then later on dug it up, decapitated it. He had a really big thing for like that, I guess. So of course you're starting to see that homicidal triad. You can see where, okay, he was, killing animals. And of course later on, with the profiling, they say that that's one of the traits. Sometimes it's that, or setting fires, or even bedwetting. Not necessarily that you have to have all 3, but it's found out that, oh, this guy's a killer. Oh, you know what? He used to do this too. Okay. So then he was fed up with it. He ran away back to live with his father when he was 13 in Van Nuys, California. So he tried that for a little while, and I guess the dad's new wife and the stepbrothers, they didn't really care for him. So she eventually just said, hey, he's got to go, him or me. So he shipped his son to his parents, to their family farm at North Fork, California, their farm, when he was 14. He lived there for a time with his grandparents. I forget her name. I know he was like Edmund Kemper too. He's like the first. At that time, he really did care for his father and even his grandfather. So he got really close to his grandfather. His grandfather took him hunting, bought him a rifle, all that stuff. And then he started doing sick things, shooting birds, that kind of thing. And then, his grandmother was exactly like his mom, which was Edmund's parents. But anyway, so he started seeing again this whole woman thing. He hated his mother, absolutely hated her, despised her, fantasized, about her being dead. I mean, so when finally there's different accounts. She comes in one day and says, hey, are you shooting birds? And so when she turns her back, he shoots her, and or he stabs her and then shoots her. So, and he just said, there's two accounts. He said they had an argument, and then there's other accounts where he said, I just wanted to see what it felt like to kill someone. I think it's more that, or he just lost it. But then he goes outside, his grandpa shows up. Like I said, he cared about his grandpa, so he went ahead and just killed his grandpa because he figured, I don't want my grandpa to see that his wife is dead, even though she was a horrible woman too to him. And that's like a weird thing. But, so, anyway, so he killed his grandpa because he didn't want him to know that his grandson had killed the grandma. So right after he murdered both of them, he calls his mom, Clarnell, and says, hey, I did this. And she's like, well, you got to call the cops. So the cops came and got him, and he was 14 years old, already 6'4". He was a huge guy. So they find him guilty, whatever, and they send him to a psychiatric unit for troubled youth, basically like a mental institution for criminals. And that was in 1964. So once he got there, they determined, he must be paranoid schizophrenic, because back then that was pretty much what they would give you, or, claim that you are, diagnose you, because you must be crazy, you must be hearing things, somebody must be telling you to do these things. I don't know if anyone has any input on that. But, so that's what he did in Tascadero, California. Now, he was there for 5 years till he turned 21, and they let him out on his birthday. Now, the thing that I find just crazy to me is they let him out, but that's because he was so smart. This kid, when they tested him, he ended up having an IQ of 145. That's like genius level. So when he's there in the mental institution, the doctors and the psychiatrists, they all start to like him. They respect him. They think he's a really cool kid. He's very smart. They realized he wasn't schizophrenic, that he might have had personality trait disorder of a passive aggressive, jerk, evil. So he fooled them into thinking that he was perfectly sane, normal, that he could go on and live a happy life, a perfect member of society, rejoin. And in all this, the 5 years that he was there, they trusted him. Like, they put a lot of trust in him. He learned how to say the right things. He was interviewed so much that he had the right wording, knew what to say. He even gained their trust, and he was able to interview other convicts there and other mentally insane people from there. And he held therapy sessions. He was very smart, and he was convincing, very manipulative. So he eventually convinced them that he was well, and they all vouched for him. And a lot of it even, I think he even said in an interview that he felt like the doctors just had such a big ego and were proud of themselves. Like, we did it, we fixed this kid, let him out into society. But one thing, do not let him live with his mom. He hates his mom, not a good thing, trigger, whole thing. So that was the one stipulation. So he gets out of the mental institution in 1969 is when he gets out, on his 21st birthday. So at that time, he's under court supervision, kind of like probation. And I guess he gets a job, he starts living a normal life. He actually applied to the California State Highway Patrol. He didn't get a job, but not because he was, his background or anything like that, but because he was too tall. He was 6'9". And it's like, oh, you're too tall, big, 300 pounds. So he didn't get the job, and he ended up getting a job with the Department of Highway, like transportation, like cleaning the roads and stuff. So that's what he did for a couple of years, and he had a roommate. And during that time, he was involved in a car accident, and he was hurt very badly, and he won a huge settlement of like $15,000. Back then, $15,000 was like 90, so pretty big settlement. He went out and bought him like a 2-door car, thought he was hip, and started looking for girlfriends. But he always had these fantasies, even from a child, of what it would be like to kill someone, you know, sexual fantasies with their bodies, things like that. So this started to grow in him, and he started patrolling, you know, just like picking up hitchhikers. I mean, he picked up over 100 hitchhikers in his lifetime, and just trying to get the you know, the guts to do it. Like, he would even say later on in interviews, you know, I would see a girl and think, man, I could really, you know, I'd like to date her. But then at the same time, he says, then I would say, I wonder what her head would look like on a spike. I mean, these are his words. So he clearly was still fantasizing about, you know, killing. So let me see what else. I've just been running on. Okay, so he's doing all this, and finally he picks up two female hitchhikers in 1972, May 7th, 1972. That's kind of important because you'll see when he finally gets caught, it's like less than a year. So he picks up these two hitchhikers. They were from Fresno College in 1972, and he takes them for a ride, and they're wanting to go to a college. And the way he talks to them, you know, again, he knows what to say. He's very personable. People, very soft-spoken. People like him, you know. He's very off-putting, so he knows how to manipulate conversations. And so when he picked up these two girls, he knows he wants to kill them. And he wants to kill them, rape them, and dismember their bodies. That's his intention. So he pulls off to like nearby, you know, to like a secluded area, and they freak out, and he threatens to kill them, and he takes the one out back, and he kills her, then comes back and kills the other girl. Like I said, they're both in college, and, you know, then he put them in the trunk. This was kind of his MO, what he would do. So he put him in the trunk, and then he went back to his apartment and proceeded to have, you know, he was a necrophiliac, so he would have sex after their bodies were dead. And then he dismembered the bodies after a day or so, and then went and dumped them out in the woods and different parts of the woods in town. So that happened in 1972. These people were not found for a few months. Then he goes in, where's the thing? He kidnaps so he kidnaps, in September 14th, 1972, he kidnaps a 15-year-old girl she's in high school. She's not a college student. And it was someone, she was a young girl. She was going to a dance recital, and I guess she missed the bus. And, you know, he offered her a ride home, and she took a ride home. And this time, he realized some of his mistakes, the previous crime, that, you know, I'm not going to just like bring out a knife and scare them, because that crime went kind of wrong. You know, it went out of hand. It got out of hand. He wasn't able to control them, but he still managed to kill them, obviously. So this time he decided, again, he's very smart. He decided to play it differently. When he picked her up, he was just kind of like, oh, you know, I feel like I want to hurt you, but, you know, I feel like I want to hurt myself too, and I'm depressed. So he appealed to that, and she started being like, oh, you got more to live and all this stuff. He had pulled over the side of the road, and he gained her trust into thinking, you know, like making her feel sorry for him. So he goes out back to the back of the trunk to go get his gun or his knife, and he had pulled a gun on her, and that's when she was like, oh. So he goes back to get the knife, and he accidentally locks himself out of the car. Okay, so this 15-year-old girl, he convinces her to open the door, because at this time he's gained her trust. I mean, she's actually thinking, oh, nothing's gonna happen to me, you know, he's overcome his depression, he's gonna take me back to town. So he proceeds to get in there, he chokes her to death, then rapes her, takes her back to the apartment again, this other girl, and dismembers the body, you know, has sex with the body, mostly the head. He liked to decapitate, and then he threw her body parts all over that area. So there was a couple instances where I've heard that cops pulled him over and he had 2 bodies in the car at that time because he had a broken taillight. This is how calm he was, that he was able to convince the cop to let him go. You see this, I mean, you know, that's how smart he was. And you've seen other killers do this too. We find out that Ted Bundy did that, Jeffrey Dahmer. They were all either stopped by a cop or something. But I don't remember, I mean, one story says it was the first killings and another story says it was some other ones, so it's hard to tell which one. So that's going on. At this time, these girls are only considered missing. Nobody's dead. Nobody has found their bodies or anything. And he, you know, like many killers and serial killers, they want to, what is the word? Where they put themselves in the crime scene, like in the investigation. So he starts hanging out at a bar. It was called the Jury Room. And it was a place where a lot of cops frequented and they hung out. And he got to be known there as Big Ed. And the cops really enjoyed talking to him. He liked to pick their brains, you know, and just secretly just loved knowing the fact that there was, when they finally found bodies, he liked knowing that, you know, he was pulling the wool over them and just kind of hearing, you know, seeing what was going on in the case and just feeling like, haha, y'all can't catch me. So he tried to remain close to the case, and they all liked him. They all thought he was a cool guy, you know, etc. During this time, he's picking up all these hitchhikers, right? And he's, you know, his personal life starts, I mean, as far as like his job, and he you know, like he's spending too much time doing this other stuff that he loses his job. So he ends up having to move back with his mom. And that's where things went downhill, right? So he moves back in with his mother in the beginning of January, or just before January, 1973. Now, he's already killed 3 people, 2 different instances. And right back to their old ways. She was very abusive, ugly, talking bad to him. He would say, oh, can you because she worked at University of California in 1969, and this was 1973. So she really loved her college girls. Like, you know, he would say things like, you know, why don't you introduce me to some girls there? Oh, they would never have you. You're scum. You're trash. You know, you're not good enough. All this stuff. Nobody would ever want to be with you. So in the back of his mind, he starts to realize, you know, he doesn't realize this till later, that he's targeting a lot of these women, obviously, you know, kind of like how he feels about his mother, that hatred, but also the college students, because they, you know, represent his mom and what she covets, like what she loves. Like, she puts so much into beautiful people. So in January 1st, 1973, wait a minute. Yes, he kidnaps another college student from that college, and she was 18 years old. And at that time, right away he killed her. I mean, he didn't, like, you know, con her, talk her into anything. He just shot her right away, threw her in the trunk. As you can see, like, now he's starting to escalate his, you know, get to his climax, I guess, right away and not goof around about it. And he killed her, took her back to his mom's house and had sex with her there when his mom was at work, dismembered her body in the tub, and threw her body parts everywhere. But this time, when he took off her head, he buried it underneath the window. And you can see a lot of this in the show Mindhunter. A lot of the stuff when the 2 agents are talking with him, that's actually, a lot of it's very true. Some of the things have been changed. But he does this, and of course he does it because he's like, I wanted them to, like, look up to my mom right underneath the mom's window, you know, because she always wanted people to look up to her. That's what he quoted. So things are starting to escalate, obviously, and within a month he goes on to kill 2 more people in February 5th, 1973. By the way, I chose not to mention the victims too much. I forgot to mention that because, you know, I know a lot of times they don't want to be named. So anyway, so he killed 2 other girls from a college, and even by this time, when he was driving around looking for people, they were already saying, hey, like the town was already in fear. They were calling Santa Cruz the murder capital of the world because there was actually 2 other serial killers at that time running around doing crazy stuff. I forgot their names. But he was like, they were told, don't be hitchhiking, you know, stay in pairs, all this stuff. So what he did was, again, using his smarts, he got one of the stickers from the school on his car, and so when he would pick up girls, he was like, oh, they would think, you know, he had his glasses, he looked like a decent kid, guy, jerk, and they would trust him and they would go with him. And he would say, like, as soon as, if they started talking about any of the murders or the killings or kidnappings, he says they didn't know it at the time, but that actually was their ticket to you know, safety. He wouldn't kill them. It was almost like he revered the fact that they knew about him, and you know, so he just let them go. You know, maybe one day they'd look back and think, oh my gosh, I was almost there. So once he got those 2, right away, shot him, killed him, took him back to the house, did the same thing, decapitated them, had sex with their heads, buried them, threw them away. Ocean, I think, on that one. And over the years when he would do interviews, he would say, it always seemed like when I had big fights, you know, I would just go and do this. But I mean, obviously he had these tendencies to want to kill, you know. But it finally culminated one night, April 20th, 1973. It was the Easter holiday weekend. And his mom had been out partying. I mean, she was an alcoholic. She was a mess. And she came home and she said something to him like, oh, I guess you're going to want to talk all night or something, because he was quite the talker, Chatty Cathy. And he's like, no, good night, right? And then, so she goes to bed, and once she falls asleep, he gets like a claw hammer and just like kills her. And then decapitates her. And he even said in an interview, like, I screamed at her head for an hour, I threw darts at her. I mean, this was it. This was it for him. He finally did everything that he's ever wanted to do, and was destroy her. And he even later on went to say, like, you know, if I had killed my mom first, you know, I probably never would have killed anybody else. So, but once he did that, and he had sex with her head again, that was his thing. He even cut out her larynx and her vocal cords and tried to flush them down the garbage disposal. There are 2 or 3 different sightings where it's cited that, you know, that may not be true, may be true. John Douglas, the guy that was interviewed, the FBI profiler, he did say that is in the case file. I haven't seen the case file, so I don't know. I'm assuming he's being honest, though. Then he started thinking, somebody's still listening. So he does this to her. Then he realized, like, oh my gosh, the college is going to see that my mom doesn't show up at work. I shouldn't say mom, like they know it, like they love each other. Mother is not going to be at work. How do I, you know? So he started to panic, and he figured, let me just call her best friend, who was, where's her name? Anyway, her best friend, Sarah something. I shouldn't say it like that, but it was here somewhere. I'm sorry. Gosh, I don't even have it written down here. Okay, it was her best friend. He calls her and say, hey, why don't you come over? I'm going to have dinner for you and mother. Come over. He figures, you know, if I kill her too, maybe the college or her job will just think that they went off for the weekend. You know, like a crazy binge, because I guess his mother got around some. So he does that. She comes over, and before she can do anything, he just like comes up behind her and chokes her and just kills her, because, you know, he's done. He wants to get out of this area because he knows they're coming to get him any second. And that was his mentality all the time, like at any time somebody could get me. So he does that. He kills her. He takes off. Okay. Where are my notes? So when he leaves, he's gone for a few days, and he keeps looking at the TV, the news, everything. At any moment, he feels like the FBI, the police are going to just arrest him right away because they've already found the body. Well, after a few days gone by, he's already like mentally anguished and just, he can't take it, the stress, he's in a panic, paranoid. He's exhausted from the thought of, they're going to get him. So he finally just calls the sheriff's office and says, hey, it's me, Big Ed. That's what they called him. All the cops knew him. They thought he was full of crap. They were like, yeah, okay, whatever. Call back later. And he was like, no, I killed these people. If you go to my mother's house, you will find her and her friend in the closet. Come and get me. I'm in Colorado. I'm in Pueblo, Colorado. I'm not even looking at this point. But anyway, so finally, they go over there and they realize, okay, yeah, there's bodies. This guy knows more about the co-ed killings, So, yeah, they were shocked that this guy that they'd been hanging out with, enjoyed his company, was the co-ed killer. And he confessed, and he just said, once my mother was dead, it just seemed like that was it. It was over. It wasn't even worth it to run anymore. Like he no longer had a purpose, I guess. So he ends up going to prison, serving. He was sentenced and charged for those 8 counts of murder. So all in all, in his history, he did 10 murders. And these women, the 6 women were the college, one was a high school student, and of course the mother and the best friend. And he goes to prison. He's still in prison right now in California. I think it's Vacaville. I'm not sure. But he's been there. I think they said he was like 73. And he's been a model inmate. He enjoyed his life. He's had interviews. He's been very active as far as helping, interviewing criminals, again, like the whole psychiatric thing. It's not a prison. It is a psychiatric hospital, actually. He was found guilty but sane. So even in prison, in prison, he's, what is it? Like voice recorded books, like read audio books or something. So he's, I don't know the word that I'm looking for. Narrated a lot of books, Star Wars, just different, like 5,000 hours or something crazy. So he's been productive in prison. And the reason I found this interesting was because, not interesting, but I guess I took an interest in it, was because when I did watch that Mindhunters, they actually go and they interview him. He's one of the guys that they interviewed, and they gained so much from him, so much insight, because he was so smart, that his IQ was so high, he was able to vocalize how he felt, like why he did the things, why he was a killer, all these insights that other criminals that they were interviewing at the time, they couldn't verbalize that or vocalize that because they didn't have the mental capacity and the intelligence that this guy had. So they did glean a lot from him. He gave them a lot of just insight into how, he would kill and how he felt like, people do that. And that's what the profilers did. I mean, John Douglas and Robert Kessler, was it Kessler or Ressler now? They started that unit, the BSU unit in Quantico, which now it's called the BAU, the Behavioral Analysis Unit. And, they coined the phrase profile, serial killer. Much of what we know now is from them. And they went around training law enforcement agencies after interviewing hundreds of inmates to gain insight from them. And that's what that show is about, Mindhunter. It's, based on them, based on the 2 agents. And, and these, and he was a big part of that. So I guess that's why, and even the agents felt like they almost had to remind themselves, like, okay, we're not friends with him, but that's how personable he was. And
ready to have, you're on. Never mind.
Told you I was going to be live. Cool. So, he's fat. I don't know if you saw his belly. But anyway, I'm going to stop. So anyway, he did that. I don't know what I was saying. Does anyone have any input? I've been on here 38 minutes. Sorry. Has anybody seen that show? First of all, Mindhunter. Are you gonna go watch it? Okay. So I cannot believe and I'm gonna leave because he's using the bathroom, and I cannot believe we have got.
I am not.
6 bathrooms in this house. Okay.
I'm not. I'm gonna wash my hands.
Hey Cindy, I love it. I can't believe they canceled all this. Yes, you need to watch it. There's Barry. I'm not worried. It's not like this is gonna get, shown on AP or gonna get leaked. Stupid place.
228.
He needs to lose some weight, he says. No, actually, Cindy, they did cancel the show, but supposedly from what, Barry, go away. Jane. Supposedly what they did was they've picked it back up. They've actually found a screen for it, a screenplay, and they're working on that right now. Because if you remember, there's that whole thing with the BTK killer that they're doing. So I really hope that they bring it back. I mean, they ended with the child Atlanta murders, which that's a whole nother thing. I do not believe that guy did all of those murders. I think he only did a few. So, but that's pretty much it. No, they're bringing it back. They're gonna bring it back. So I really appreciate everyone joining me. I'm sorry this went later than I thought, but it was fun. I'm trying to figure out what other case I might deal with. I am thinking about Natalie Woods. I don't know if you all know her. She is the actress that they claim drowned. No, I think she was murdered. I think she was forcibly drowned. And thank you. I don't know. It took me weeks to figure this one out. I don't know when it's going to be in the next one. But if you all know about Natalie Woods, yes, please give me suggestions. And if anybody ever wants to do a live with me and, kind of like we can do both, like you do this part, I'll do that part, we should do that. But again, I'm thinking about doing Natalie Woods because a number 2 should go to prison. # Austin Powers. Night-night.